Hi, welcome back to Daily Lore, another reaction, a react. Yeah, let's just go right into it. Nothing else to say. Oh, like, comment, subscribe. Sometimes I say it, sometimes I don't. It's fine. If you do, if you don't, it's okay.
Without a doubt, this is the best simulation game of 2025. It's not just a stress.
My sister stole the novel
Also, sorry I don't have YouTube Premium. I don't have any money, so yeah. I just have to deal with ads. Even though this video would go a lot faster if I don't have ads, but whatever. Yeah, it's fine.
spent 5 years writing, changed the character names, and got a publishing deal. At her book launch party, I was introduced as her biggest inspiration. I raised my glass and said, to my sister's success, would you like me to read an excerpt from the original manuscript I still have, dated 3 years before yours? I always believed that blood was thicker than water, that family was the one constant.
I don't know why I feel like all these stories are the same. I think this whole channel is pretty much the same. It's all about family. I don't really know. Some channels have a specific target they try to hit about the Reddit. Um, I'm assuming they have the same, but a little bit different than other channels as well.
You could rely on no matter what. My sister Melanie and I were only 18 months apart, raised in a small Midwestern town by parents who emphasized loyalty above all else. Sisters before misters, our mom would say. Family is forever, our dad would remind us whenever we fought. Growing up, Mel and I shared everything clothes, friends, secrets. She was the outgoing one, pretty and popular, while I was quieter, more introspective. I didn't mind living somewhat in her shadow, her light was bright enough for both of us. At least that's what I told myself. When I went to college for English literature, Melanie followed me a year later, choosing marketing at the same university. We even shared an apartment off campus during my junior and senior years. It seemed natural to continue our closeness into adulthood. After graduation, I found work as a content writer for a healthcare company, not my dream job, but it paid the bills while I worked on what I really wanted, writing a novel. My passion project consumed my evenings and weekends for 5 long years. It was a coming of age story set during the 1960s, following two sisters navigating family secrets, social change, and their complicated relationship with each other. The protagonist.
Honestly, this sounds pretty good. I wouldn't read it, of course. I don't read. I would listen to it if it was an audiobook and if I was interested in it. Otherwise, you know, sounds good. So far, I really have nothing to react to. They're just telling this backstory.
Anna, was loosely based on me, thoughtful, observant, overlooked. Her sister Catherine was beautiful and magnetic but deeply insecure, using her charm to mask her fears of inadequacy. I poured everything into that manuscript my observations, my emotions, snippets of family history, and carefully researched historical details. I tracked.
I mean, that makes sense. A lot of people do that as well, especially with their first book, pretty much. I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people do that. They make themselves the protagonist, or they make their life somewhat relatable to the story, something like that.
My progress in dated journal entries, celebrating milestones and working through plot problems. Melanie knew about my novel. She'd occasionally ask how it was going, though her eyes would often glaze over when I shared details about my writing process or research discoveries. When I finally completed the manuscript at 378 pages, I felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything I'd experienced before. This was my heart on paper, my voice, my creation. I hired an editor with money I'd been saving, made revisions based on their feedback, then began the intimidating process of querying literary agents. The rejections rolled in steadily, some form letters, others with encouraging personal notes. Strong voice, but the market for historical fiction is tight right now. Compelling characters, but we're not confident about positioning this. Please consider us for your next project. Each one stung, but I persisted, believing in my story. Throughout this process, Melanie was seemingly supportive. They're idiots, she'd say after particularly disappointing rejections. They don't recognize talent when they see it. I appreciated her loyalty, even as I noticed she never actually asked to read the manuscript. I'd offered once, but she'd waved it off, saying she'd wait for the published version. I didn't push. Not everyone in your life needs to engage with your creative work, even family. About a year into my querying process, Melanie moved to Chicago for a marketing position with a lifestyle brand. Our communications became less frequent, which I attributed to her adjustment to a new city and demanding job. She'd
That
mentioned being
makes
crazy
sense.
busy and working on exciting projects, but the details were always vague. Then came the Facebook post that stopped my heart. Melanie, beaming beside a distinguished looking older woman, holding a manuscript with her name on the cover. The caption read, "Dreams do come true." So excited to announce my debut novel Sisters of Summer will be published by Horizon Press next spring. Eternal gratitude to my amazing agent Carla Winston for believing in my story. I stared at my screen, confusion giving way to disbelief, then to a sickening realization. Melanie had never mentioned writing a novel. Not once. Yet here she was, with a completed manuscript and a publishing deal. With shaking hands, I called her. The conversation that followed was surreal. "Oh, I meant to tell you," she said casually, as if forgetting to mention a haircut rather than a major life pursuit. "I've been working on this book for ages, just never talked about it. Didn't want to jinx it, you know?"
Yeah, that doesn't sound. Mm, yeah, that sounds very suspicious. Why wouldn't you tell your sister that you tell everything about that one thing? That doesn't make any sense.
"What's it about?" I asked, already knowing but needing to hear her say it. Two sisters in the 1960s dealing with family stuff and social changes. It's kind of about us, in a way. I've always been fascinated by that era. I felt physically ill. "Mel, that sounds exactly like my novel. The one I've been writing for 5 years. The one I told you about countless times." "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped, her tone instantly defensive. "Do you think you own the concept of sisters or historical fiction? It's completely different from whatever you're working on." "Can I read it?" I asked. "It's still in edits. Besides, I don't need your approval, Sophie." I hung up and said,
Excuse me? There's no way she never read the manuscript if it's pretty much the exact identical copy, just a few changed tweaks. She must have read the manuscript at some point. Because otherwise, how would they even know how to, huh?
in stunned silence. Then I emailed Melanie's new agent, explaining the situation and my concerns about plagiarism. The response was swift and cold. "Ms. Reynolds has assured me that her work is entirely original. Without evidence to the contrary, I consider this matter closed and would caution against making defamatory statements that could damage your sister's reputation and career." I tried reaching out to the publisher next, but received a similar professional dismissal. Without seeing
Right,
Melanie's
right.
manuscript, I couldn't prove anything.
Yeah, you can't prove anything without reading it. And obviously, of course, they're not gonna let you read it. And obviously, yours is not published. But I mean, you wrote your manuscript, so I mean, but it's a manuscript, so I mean, I don't know how that works, honestly. Really don't know how that works. It's not really a published thing, so I wonder. I don't know if that works like that. I'm not sure. Because a lot of people have similar ideas, but I don't know if it's the exact identical copy of it, then it's different. But it's not published yet, so just because you came up with an idea doesn't mean it's copyrighted. I don't know.
And I had no connections in the publishing industry, no leverage, nothing but my word against my sister's, my unpublished sister's word against my now soon to be published sister. Our parents were bewildered by my accusations. "Why would Melanie steal your book?" my mother asked, clearly uncomfortable with the
Probably because she has nothing really going for her, I'd say.
conflict. "She's always been so creative. Remember her school projects?" My father was more blunt. "Don't let jealousy ruin your relationship with your sister. This should be a happy time for the family." For months, I simmered in a toxic brew of betrayal, rage, and helplessness. I stopped querying my novel. How could I continue when a version of it was already being prepared for publication? I couldn't even bear to open the manuscript files, each word now tainted by this violation. Instead, I threw myself into work, picked up extra freelance assignments, anything to numb the pain of what Melanie had done. Then the invitation arrived in my email. Horizon Press cordially invites you to celebrate the launch of Sisters of Summer by Melanie Reynolds. The event was scheduled at an upscale Chicago bookstore, with wine and word.
This is when she finds out it's the exact copy of your manuscript.
Readings, and book signings. My name was specifically mentioned, special guest, Sophie Reynolds, the author's sister and biggest inspiration. My first instinct was to delete it, to pretend I'd never seen it. But something hardened inside me, a determination not to let this theft go unchallenged, not to fade quietly into the background while Melanie built her career on my work, my ideas, my heart. I booked a flight to Chicago and a hotel room for the weekend. I didn't tell Melanie I was coming, I simply RSVP'd yes to the generic event email. Then I gathered my evidence, printed copies of my original manuscript with dates, my writing journals with dated entries detailing plot developments, emails to friends discussing story elements, even early drafts showing the evolution of the characters and narrative. The launch.
I mean, obviously, if somebody plagiarized you and you know about it, of course, you have an obligation to put them in the place and to basically humiliate them to knowing. I mean, yes, it's your family, but you have to teach them a lesson that plagiarizing is not okay. They might not like you and they might not talk to you for a long time, even though you were very close. They might not talk to you. But that's the future problem.
Event was exactly as I'd imagined, elegant, well attended, my sister radiant in a blue dress that complemented her eyes, holding court among literary people who nodded appreciatively at her insights. She faltered slightly when she saw me enter, but recovered quickly, weaving through the crowd to embrace me with a camera.
Of course she faltered because she knows. So it was plagiarized. See, that reaction just tells me everything then. It was completely plagiarized. She completely plagiarized her sister. Mm.
Smile. You came. I wasn't sure you would, she whispered, her nails digging slightly into my arm. Please be happy for me, Sophie. Just for tonight. I smiled back, my tote bag heavy with evidence against her. I wouldn't miss it. The evening proceeded with practiced precision. Melanie signed books, read a passage that I recognized as a reworked version of my chapter 12, and graciously fielded questions about her creative process and inspirations. When asked about research, she spoke about immersing herself in 1960s culture through films, music, and historical accounts, exactly the approach I'd shared with her over countless dinners years ago. Near the end of the event, Melanie's editor clinked her glass for attention and gave a toast to the fresh new voice in American fiction. Then she turned to me, standing quietly in the corner. And we're so delighted to have Melanie's sister Sophie with us tonight. Melanie tells us you were her biggest inspiration for this beautiful story about sisterhood. Would you like to say a few words? The room turned to me expectantly. Melanie's smile froze, her eyes silently pleading. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. Everything I'd brought with me, the evidence, the dates, the proof, suddenly felt heavy in my bag. I could expose her right now, create a scene.
Yeah, you could. See, see, in this scenario, would you do that? Would you expose your sister or brother or whatever if they actually plagiarize you? I mean, it sounds noble, maybe, because obviously somebody plagiarized your work. But that's different when it's family. Of course, you're related to them. You might see them if you go back home all the time, of course. So, I mean, it might be different as well. And you were close as kids, and you are still close. So, it's kind of a difficult question if you should do this or shouldn't. Hmm. Mm, depending on what they do, but the question is why? Why did they do this?
That would be remembered by everyone in this room, potentially derail her budding career. It would be justified. It would be fair.
I don't think she has a budding career. This is not even her book. This is going to be the one off. It's going to be a one-off thing. It's going to be a one-hit wonder because she's not a illustrator. She doesn't know what she doesn't know how to do anything. So it's going to be a one-hit wonder unless she's going to plagiarize you again.
But looking around at the smiling faces, the stacks of books with my sister's name, the proud gleam in my parents' eyes as they watched from across the room, I realized something. This moment of revenge would define me as much as it would define her. I raised my glass. To my sister's success, I said clearly. Would you like me to read an excerpt from the original manuscript I still have, dated 3 years before yours? The room went utterly silent. Melanie's glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. For one endless moment, our eyes locked across the space between us, the sister who took what wasn't hers, and the sister who finally found her voice. I placed my untouched glass on a nearby table and walked out, leaving Melanie to face the whispers that were already beginning to ripple through her perfect launch party. As the bookstore door closed behind me, I felt lighter than I had in months. My story was still mine, whether published or not. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply speak your truth, then walk away.
Is that Diablo
Yeah,
Immortal?
but it is.
Dude, you scared me!
It is sad that it can never actually be published now. Because, of course, her story is never going to be published now. Or their story is never going to be published. Because the story is already published. Even if it's like a few tweaks about it, it's still basically the same concept of a story. The whole plot is pretty much probably the same. The whole ending is probably the same. Basically, the whole thing is the same. It's probably a different narrative, though. It's a different narrative. The narrator is completely different. So it shifts point of views, probably. Most likely. I'm not 100% sure. But there's no point in releasing a book that's similar. There's really no point. So obviously, she just had to speak her truth. And yes, she is right. This moment did define her. It changed everything about their relationship and everything like that. You always have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth um, damaging our relationship over something? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no, but you have to ask yourself that without being emotional, of course. Obviously, you could be emotional afterwards, but think logically, is it worth damaging our relationship? Afterwards, you could be emotional all you want after you read it, after whatever you decide. But otherwise, you have to ask yourself that. But obviously, they think it is because obviously they have to tell their truth. Okay, my sister stole the novel I spent 5 years writing, changed the character's name, and got a. And that was Dead Spies Red Story React. Hope you have a nice day, good evening, nice night, and a good morning. Okay, bye.